Oh, hello everybody. It's Pastor Rick. Glad you're with me today. It is 7 o'clock. We are on time, and we are thankful that you're with us. And I'm hoping that you're ready for a fun discussion. I'm here at my house, and as you can see, I got all my little pictures behind me. Got my crew with me, and I hope you are ready for a fun discussion. This is our prosperity team meeting. You haven't heard from me in a little bit because we've been kind of working and resting and doing all the good, smart stuff that keeps you healthy and strong. Um, I am. I don't know. Do you want to know what I did today? Do you really like care? I got this morning and I had a procedure done because I just think you should. Part of prosperity is taking care of yourself, right? Getting all your medical stuff done. So I had a colonoscopy this morning. So I'm coming down off the medication. So if I sound a little bit high, no, I'm fine. I feel great. But I was told not to drive and not to make any important decisions. So I haven't been hanging around all day and really just having a productive day, I think. I am going to have one of our ministers, Sheila Bishop, join me. She's like my partner in crime. She does a great job, smart lady. And she's going to join us in just a minute. And I'm going to have a discussion today to give you a sample of where we're going in 2025. There are some things that we want to discuss that I think are really, really important, fundamental things, where we talk about how we prosper. The goal of our gathering, I want to kind of review with you some of the things that we said we want to do. So let me give you a sample of where we're going. We're going to meet today online, and then we're going to meet Saturday in person at Overcoming by Faith. So that's going to be Saturday at 11, at 10. I got that wrong. Saturday, that's January 11th at 10 a.m. in person for an hour. And then after that, we go right into the books and brunch. Oh boy, it's going to be great, books and brunch. And we're going to review a book called If Only. It's about how to not live in the land of regret, finding freedom from regret. That's our book at 11 o'clock on this coming Saturday. So every second week, you can put on your calendars, every second Wednesday and every second Saturday, we will meet. Now, everything is always online and in person. So you can choose how you want to do this. You can make sure that you are here with us in person. I'd love to see you. And so if you're in town or able to be here, it'd be great. That's every second Saturday at 10. Did I say 10? Yeah, 10 o'clock. So we'll keep you posted though. So if you have not signed up to be a part of this team and you're like listening in, we'll make sure we tell you how you can do that at the end. Brian's back there in the backstage working. And Brian, so we'll come back to that. Remind me at the end. Bring Sheila Bishop in, would you please? And Miss Bishop, how are you doing? Hope you are having a great holiday, post-holiday, right?
It's post-holiday. We are fully back to work. Happy New Year, everyone. And it's good to be back.
I'm really looking forward, and we got a lot coming down the pike. By the way, we're going to do a lot more podcasting and some other things we're going to be doing down the road here. We have.
So one quick question: your
Sure.
test today. That's good. You had that done.
Yeah.
Are you every 5 years?
5 years, and it's all good. It came out.
Okay.
They. I think it's great. I think it's
Perfect.
a process you go through, and you starve. No, I don't starve. I didn't feel like I starved. As a matter of fact, this is the sorry part. This is part of prosperity. Those of you that are watching, if you want to be prosperous, you got to be healthy. If you're not healthy, then forget it. You're gonna end up, all toe up and flow up, and you don't want that to happen, right? So, so I'm right, tore up from the floor up, right? You like that? Isn't that classic? Uh, so I am. I had a lot of fun. I sang for them. I did. I sang. One of my favorite songs? Give me a home with the buffalo roam, with the deer and the antelope roam, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range. So I sang that as they were rolling me in. I did, and they thought it was quite special. So, but I had a good. I'm trying to make a good time out of all the times. How about that?
That's good.
So today, Ms. Bishop, we're going to pick up on this discussion, and people can email me at pastor@overcomingbyfaith.org if you have a question. Or they can type it in the chat. I'm sorry. Bam, chat's right there. You can type
Yes.
it in the chat, and that's a faster way. And you can let me know if you have a particular question about what we're going to talk about. But what I want to do is review where we started. First of all, before we go much further, Ms. Bishop, how have you enjoyed our conversations in this group? We've had a lot of people. We had hundreds of people tuning in. So tell me what you thought about it so far.
I think the thing that I've enjoyed about it the most, one of the things that I've enjoyed about it the most, I think is consistent with the reason why you actually said that this forum, if you will, was important. It gives you a place. It's nice to have a place to be able to freely discuss money, to discuss different views, get different ideas, and really, I think what you have done is laid a good foundation that I think over time we will certainly build on and be better. So I'm just enjoyed about that because I'm one of those people. I like to talk about money, and have a good perspective about it. And sometimes we are embarrassed to talk about it because you don't want to be perceived the wrong way or get labeled the wrong way, that you money hungry or you got your priorities mixed up or whatever. Nobody wants to talk about money, but everybody need money.
Well, I think one of the things is church is just not a safe place to talk about it, because in church we have this issue with it. And it's
well, I think one of the other good things that also about this is I think you have, from my perspective, give a very balanced view in terms of the direction that we're going, because in some instances discussions have been the far extreme of, if you just give to this, you'll get. And I think we've been mixed up in some of our theology. Is that a okay word to use?
It's a good word to use.
Okay.
Right. So let's set the stage. We're going to give you a review of some of the things we talked about in the previous year. So I'm going to go back to like June of last year when we really kind of got cranked up here. Then I'm going to take you on a review of our book. And Brian, I want you to put the book up. I'm going to show you. This is the book we're going to read for the next 3 months. And it's a really good book. And I was really surprised. It's by Dave Ramsey, The Legacy Journey. So I want you to get that book if you don't have it. That's going to be our study book. We're going to work through that more on Saturday. I'm going to scan through it a little bit today. And then we're going to just kind of maybe take some of your questions. I'm going to give you a quick look at something. Now, Sheila, you haven't even heard me talk about this yet. It's called the power of the percentages. I believe that when it comes to money, God wants you to understand the power of percentages. I think the reason that tithing was mentioned in percentages was because you just do better. I've saved more money by saving by percentages than I've ever saved in any other way. I've done better in budgeting. I'm going to spend this much on, percentage of my income on this, the other percentage on that. There's something about percentages, and I'll give you some biblical examples tonight. I'll give you some hints. We'll talk about it more in detail down the road, but tithing was a percentage. Joseph, when he told Pharaoh what to do to save Egypt, that was in a percentage. So there's a number of examples I'll share with you, just a few tonight near the end. So sit with me for the next 50 minutes or so, and let's see if we can plow through this together. So let me take you back in time a little bit, and we'll walk our way through a few things. So first of all, our objective, there was an objective when we started this, we were committed to learning how to prosper. That's my goal. I want you to learn how to prosper, advance ourselves. I want you to know how to advance yourself so that we can have resources, make a difference in our families and the world around us. So I'm committed to learning how to prosper. That's what I want you to do. I want you to learn how to prosper. I want you to advance yourself. Somehow there's this idea that you got to advance the kingdom. I'm not against that. I think we should, but you can't advance something if you're not advanced yourself. I don't know how you can do that. How can you possibly advance the kingdom if you are not advanced yourself? If you're broke, how can you help somebody else not be broke? And I think that's a really simple thing. Somebody came to my house one time and they said, Pastor Rick, they said, I want to help you become a millionaire. And I said, are you what? He got quiet. I said, okay, first of all, you can't help me play basketball if you can't play. So it's really simple, really easy. to get confused about that. But anyway, so our goal is to help you advance. I want you to advance, and so that you will have the resources to make a difference. You can't make a difference. You can't hire anybody. You never paid any. Never made payroll. You've never been able to contribute to a charity in a way that's significant, so that they notice you. And you're not making a difference to the world around you. So if you were to be missed right now, who would miss you? If you disappeared from the face of the earth, who would say, "Oh my God, where are they?" You want to be the kind of person who lives in such a way that you bring value to the world around you. Now, I'm not saying you got to be a big shot or a millionaire and all that. I'm just simply saying that I want to talk about things that can help you make a significant difference and be able to contribute economically, not just prayerfully. Prayer is great. I want you to pray and all that. And matter of fact, that's a good thing for us to do right about now. We haven't done that yet. Let's pause and pray. Father, I thank you for those who've gathered with me today. I pray that you would let this be a time of grace, guidance, and your presence as we talk about how to grow. You said you would that we prosper. And so, Father, I pray that as we talk about this together, that you guide our conversations and our thoughts in Jesus' name. Amen. So let me go review. You can begin to get your questions together, things you want to ask me as I review this, what we talked about so far in our prosperity team. And I called the prosperity team because, as I said, in church, I can't talk about money long. I have maybe 5 minutes, 3 minutes, real short time. And I wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you about money. So here we go. This is a review of where we've been. We talked about prosperity in the Christian perspective. It's not just always about material gain. And we used the book, Biblical Wealth and Prosperity by Lamb. That was the book we used in our last study. This is the book, Biblical Wealth and Prosperity. So if you missed it, you can get this book. Some of what we covered in our last time together was this book. So, and it really focuses on the fact that prosperity is not just about material gain. So good book to get to kind of catch up if you want to do that. We also talked about misconceptions about wealth. Wealth is inherently evil. That's a mistake. It's not. Having money is not evil. Sometimes being broke can be evil. So it's wrong to make money your God, but we talked about that in detail. We talked about the prosperity gospel and how there was a season when it was all about naming, claiming, and I understand what they meant, but I think they went too far and it became too much of a bent theology toward making money, and it just got lost somewhere in the sauce. And then poverty equals righteousness. Sometimes that was a big extreme in history, that people thought that if you're poor, then you're godly. If you don't got no money, then God's with you. God somehow celebrates the poor and the broke. And then we talked about in July of last year, we talked about how to make money. We went to a little conversation about that. And I'm looking forward to next month. I wanted to have some of the entrepreneurs with me today, but we won't be able to have them this week. But we will bring them in February, and we'll talk about entrepreneurship in more detail. I wanted that to be my theme for this month, but that didn't work out for me. So we'll pick it up on next month. But I really believe that how you make money and how you can change your financial picture is really an important conversation. So we talked about that. Does God want you to make money? The answer is yes, he does. He wants you to have money and resources, because then you can do good things. Otherwise you can just talk and complain. So I want you to think about that. What are the different levels of prosperity? We talked about that. The different levels. Now, some of you, you feel really powerful because you got, a few dollars in the bank, but there are different levels. One of the things that I learned in my life, I grew up raised by a single parent. We never had a lot of cash, a lot of money. We lived in apartments all of our lives. My mom never lived in a house until I put her in one of the houses that I owned. And so never owned a new car until I bought a new car. So we were not wealthy people by any stretch of any imagination. But I learned, because of my exposures, that there were different levels. I worked in Beverly Hills at a brokerage firm for several years, and learned that there is a whole nother world of finances and capacity and ability. Went to developed some friendships, and I learned that I was the poorest of all my friends. But that taught me about money and wealth, and also learned how to wear wealth without being arrogant. There's a lot of people that when they get a little bit of money, they wear it all, talk it all, they act like they got it all. But I do believe that there's a power in that. So we talked a little bit about that. We'll come back to that conversation in the coming year and this year. Tools that you need to make money. Now, Luke chapter 14, verse 28 is where we started with that. Luke chapter 14, verse 28 through verse 33. I love that place, that chapter, that whole conversation, because Jesus talked about counting the cost. And he said, if you're going to make money and you're going to prosper, you need to have a passion to build, a passion to have. And this is where a lot of Christians have trouble. And I know Miss Bishop's going to come back in later. I'm going to bring her back in later. We'll talk about that later, Miss Bishop. Because one of the issues that people have is they think it's wrong to have passion. And we'll talk about that. So we went through it a little bit and discussed how important it is to have a desire to make money. You have to want to make it. So you have to have passion. You have to have a willingness to count the facts up, sit down and look at the facts and say, okay, this works, that doesn't work. Thirdly, and let me just say, that part is painful. You know, when you look at the budget, the balance sheet, oh Lord, the cash flow, it's not coming in like I needed to, God, what do I do? Okay, you know, my paycheck's short, God. But you have to have a willingness to count those facts up, know your budgets, know your numbers, that's important. And you have to have the ability to do it. You know, ability is so important. You can have a passion, you can have willingness, but if you can't count, and if you can't strategically plan, listen carefully, if you can't strategically plan, you can be an educated person with a degree and be broke. So it's not just about passion and willingness, it's about ability. And then you have to have, watch this now, you have to be able to maintain, be consistent when you start something. You can't just start and stop and start and stop. Some of you don't stay still long enough for God to bless you. Let me say it again. You don't stay still long enough. Then you have to have, it has to be able to be scaled. So it's not just, okay, you can do this for, you know, you can sell one car. Can you sell 50 cars? Can you scale up what you do? That's why a lot of people who write books, which I probably should do a whole session on book writing. I just finished the book. I'm in the middle of it now. And I've learned a lot about book writing. I've learned that some people, they can sell, the average person sells 225 books. When you write a book, they sell 225 books. That's how many books they sell. 225 a year. Google it. That's it. I'm sorry, for the lifetime of the book. So sometimes you can have a passion, right? But you can't really prosper because you can't scale it up. And then you're not going to make any money off of this. So we're good to write a book, but sometimes they sit in your garage, and if that's your goal, that's fine. If you want to, you know, bare your soul and tell about your life and tell everybody what you went through and all, that's great, but you can end up stuck there. And we'll come back to that. Tribes, you have to build a tribe. I'm a big believer in Seth Godin's book on tribes. It is my go-to book. I'm reading it again now. I love it. It's how you build beyond how you scale. You have to have tribes of people. Who are your tribes? Who are the people that you go to that help you do what you want to do? Soloists don't prosper well. You have to include people in your circle. And if you can't build teams, if you're not a coach that can build teams, you're going to be limited in the amount of money you can have. Now, I believe you can have money and you can be successful. But remember, we're talking about what are the different levels, right, of wealth and prosperity. Tribe building is really important. And that's what I'm doing, if you've noticed, building tribes, right? Then we talked about, in our last conversation and the last part of the year, we talked from the same book I mentioned to you, Biblical Wealth. We talked about giving, a giving heart, and what that means, and planning and giving. A generous person will prosper. Whatever refreshes others will be refreshed. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. I'm going to read it again slowly. You ready? Proverbs chapter 11, verse 25. Here's what it says. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. I can't say enough about giving. I'm a huge fan of giving. And to my own fault, as a matter of fact. I just believe that there's a power in giving that nothing else can replace. A person who gives is going to have a life that nobody else can have. There's something about that whole idea of sharing. And I think some of us want to prosper, but we have selfish motivations. You're not really focused on other people. It's all about you. So you think about it. If I had $1 million, what would you do with it? Well, I'd buy me, I'd give my mama, I'd do. So it's all about you. I think that generosity is a hallmark or a key to success. And so if you want to talk about prosperity, the question is why? And well, what will you do with it? So we talked about that. Also, I did this thing called Mr. Prosperity and Mr. Salary, and I did this whole thing about church and how churches struggle with money and why and what. And I'll talk more about that in the coming months. But I really believe that one of the things that hurts most churches is they have people in church that don't give, that people in church that are not generous. There is a assumption that somehow it doesn't really matter. And generosity, I remember when I would prepare for offerings, and you got to do this. If you've never raised an offering, you ought to try it. It's absolutely phenomenal. You stand in front of people and you say, all right, everybody, I want you to give. I want you to dig down deep. I want you to sow a seed now. And you kind of try to get them to go in their purse or wallet or whatever and give. And you see them sitting there looking at you like this, like, okay, you finished yet? It's amazing. So I had this whole conversation with you about that, and we'll come back to that more later on. And so I just think it was great. Good stuff. We talked about all that last year. And so now we're going to jump to our book. And I'm bringing Ms. Bishop back in. So come on, Ms. Bishop, I want to ask you a couple of questions. What did you think about my review? Did you kind of get the bottom line of all that we talked about last year?
Well, I thought we talked about a lot of things, a lot of stuff. I mean, so the review was great. One of the things that I think it'd be great for you to elaborate on just a little bit. What, for me anyway, what do you mean when you say that we don't stay long enough to you said, what do you like stay still long enough? What do you mean by that? Staying still long enough to be able to scale up. Do you mean?
Let me give you an illustration. There was a story I was told once where a guy was told by the Lord, right? He said, I want you to go and touch the world. And the guy took off. He just took off, right? And he said, next year, not now. He didn't hear the rest of the word. He just heard, go touch the world. So sometimes you don't stay long enough to hear the whole matter. The Bible says he that answers a matter before he hears it all is unwise. There's something about taking your time. Timing is so important. And I think you don't stay around long enough. You don't give long enough, serve long enough, love long enough. You didn't give the marriage enough time. You didn't give yourself enough time.
Okay.
You're in, and I don't know if you've been in those classes because you're a pretty educated person where you're studying and you don't get it, right? You don't get it. So you just stay with it. You just go get some coffee, come back, or hot chocolate, like me, I like hot chocolate, and come back. It's like you're just going too fast. So that's what I meant by that.
So out of all the things that we've talked about last year, and I know you're going to give us an overview of the book, which again, I'm cheating a little bit. I really like the book. Going to give us an overview of that and how the information there and how we'll use it. Mm-hmm. Your question that you're answering this year about starting over, how can we take this information, all the information from last year, and in light of the direction that we're going to be going, and being able to put it in a context, how to start over in our finances and how to start over with that whole concept of making it work?
Well, I want to say this. I think part of the key to starting over, and this is, by the way, those of you who don't know, that's our theme. Every year I answer one question, right? The whole year long. And so the question this year is, how do you start over? And I'll be dealing with that. And one of them is you deal with your finances, right? So we're talking about money and how to start over. So your question was, again, say it one more time. You're saying, how do you?
So, yeah, it's 2025. You're going to be answering that question. And with all the information that we have, being able to condense all this information, take all of it and do a reset for this year and be able to move forward in our finances. Or maybe some of us ended last year not where we wanted to be in our finances. And how do we move forward this year?
Mm-hmm. Just for you, those of you who know, I got lost a little bit because I was setting my clock to make sure I don't go over it. That's why I had to ask the question the second time. I think money is funny and it's always something. It's always
Okay.
something. And I think you just have to kind of embrace that throughout your life. You're going to reset the clock over and over again, like I just did, right? You're going to have
Mhm.
to sit back and say, man, I didn't save as much, or I saved it, but then I had to spend it. So let's reset the savings. Let's reset the investment. I've done that. I'm doing that right now in my life in some ways. There's some things that I've invested in that went well and some that I need to reset. And so I'm working on all those pieces. Resetting how I use my time is a big one. That's one thing I'm doing because I realize that if I focus all my time in travel and being gone all the time and not in this kind of stuff where I'm sitting here with you folks and talking to you and answering your questions, I think this is a reset for me. So you have to figure out what's important, and that's the real challenge. Some people never really assess what's important. So I'm a pastor of a church. What's important is that the people I pastor and the people that I influence, that I help them get to this place where they can deal with their money and their finances. And to me, that's really, really important. So
Okay.
here we are. Let me take you on a journey with the book. And by the way, this is where you start getting ready for your questions to type them in the chat. And we want to hear from you. So if you got questions as we go along, make sure you make note of those because in a few minutes, it's going to be your opportunity, along with Ms. Bishop, to ask me some more questions about things that you've heard. And so if you want to type those answers, questions about money that you want me to cover in this year, please type those in the chat and we'll come to those questions in just a second. Now, let me take you back on this book. I like this book, The Legacy Journey, by David Ramsey. But I want to surprise you with a thought. And I want you to leave Sheila up for a minute because I want Sheila to hear this. Sheila, reading the book, I like it. I really do. I think it's interesting, but it's some of the same old in some ways. So if you read all of Dave Ramsey's books, you come away with, and he was when I was in an airport leaving Los Angeles on a red eye. And I saw his book on the stand. I never heard of him ever. And I bought it and I became an instant fan. And I started reading all of it. So I've read all of Larry Burkett's book, Ron Blue, way back, War on Debt by John Abbasini, way back years ago. So, I mean, I have been a fan of reading these books and I got a whole bunch of them, right? But one of the things I've noticed is all of them basically say, okay, you need to have a fund, a security fund. He calls it these baby steps, right? And he talks about in the book having $1,000 in an emergency fund, and if you make under $20,000 a year, have 500. That should be your target. So you can have. I love this term that I've used for years: dignity money. So you need to get some gas, you can get gas money. If you need to get a sandwich, you can buy a sandwich. She called it Joan Perry in her book, A Girl Needs Cash. She said, I've always loved that book. It's out of print now, but I loved it. And she talked about I can get me a sandwich with some pride. I got some money. It may be just $50, but I got dignity cash, she called it. And so he talks about $1,000 giving you dignity cash. So that's great. Baby step number 2, pay off all debt except your home mortgage. And I want to say something about that because I had a conversation with our guest we're going to have next month about this concept. And he too, you'll see when we have our guest next month, he says that this idea of paying off all your debt is not possible for some people. I mean, I looked it up today. About 37% of people have paid off their mortgage. They're about in 30s, but 60-some% of people have not. So there are a lot of people that carry a mortgage for all their life till they die, even. I did not. Did you know, Ms. Bishop, that people in my age bracket, only about 22% of them still work?
Oh, really?
Right. Did you know? In their 40s, 80% of people working, right? When you get to the 50s, mid 50s, it drops in half, 40%. By the time you get to 66, where I'm at, so I'm in 22%. Almost everybody's been checked out.
How much longer does that motivate you to speed up your time
No,
frame? Oh,
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would be in the 1 percentile. I am not. I am not the guy. I'm not against retirement. I think it's great. I think it's great. Here's what I do, Sheila. I retire along the way. Take time off, go on cruises, hang out with my wife. But I'm for retirement. I'm not against it. Just want to make sure nobody send me no hot mail. I'm really for it.
so
But
what is your motivation for continuing? I mean, we're talking about wealth and work as a part of it. So what's your motivation for continuing to work?
I'm healthy.
Okay.
I still have opportunities. I have more opportunities now than ever.
Okay.
Why would I leave the fight when I'm feeling good in the fight? I'm still got the ninja moves. I feel great. Listen, when I forget who I am, and then y'all can tell me, okay, it's time, brother. It's time for you to fix it. But anyway, back to the list. So he tells you to pay off debt. That's baby step number 2 in the book. And I get the debt part. I do. But I'll tell you something. I think interesting. It's interesting. This idea that somehow, first of all, it's possible for everybody. Now I'm gonna get ethnic for a second. If you are in certain groups, certain places in life, you can make certain decisions because you have the money, you have the margins. And I'm just gonna say it and just understand my heart in it, because I think you do better knowing facts than ignoring them. So if you're an African American, for example, and you make 60% of the income of others in the majority, you're not going to be able to as easily do certain things because you don't have generational wealth. Your net worth is $12,500 total net worth compared to $200,000. So your ability to pay off a $100,000 mortgage, $150,000 mortgage, which is the balance that a lot of people have on their houses, on their mortgages, there's no way that you would necessarily be able to garner the cash to build up 6 months worth of income. It's going to be hard for you to do that. And I think it translates, if I can just cross over for a minute too, to church. If you have, 500 African Americans and you have 500, people in the majority, you're not going to necessarily have the same level of cash. Now, I know that because I've pastored on both sides of the river, and I've seen the advantages on both sides of the river. And very few African American pastors have had that opportunity, and I consider it an honor to be able to have a crossover life. But I see that there are certain things you shouldn't mimic. You have to learn to live within the bounds of your abilities and strive to do better. But what gets you in trouble is, so for example, you have this goal of paying off all debt. Let's say you are not in the position where you can see that for 10 years. Don't get drowned in that grief of, oh, I can't pay off all my debt. Go to the third point he makes. And I think this is where sometimes the guys who write these books and the people who teach this, they somehow don't always factor in the ability issue. The guy I was talking to earlier today, he said that African Americans just like they show you, they like to have nice things. So they'll spend more money than they should, and it's and I said, well, maybe, but then here's my argument, Sheila. I would say this idea of live tight, live on a budget, don't spend more than you keep it. I believe all of that. I believe you should live below your income and all. But it's interesting. If you're not careful, this is what happened to me when I first heard these kind of teachings. I felt, well, you took all the fun out.
Well, and I think that's one of the, if I may interject right now, is I think that's one of the great things that Dave Ramsey does in the book is this sort of war on wealth, these positions people take to make you feel guilty for a nice car or a few little tangible things or whatever. I mean, he addresses all of that. And so I think that's one of the great parts of.
But I think that part, even though that's there, I think when you hear pay off all your debt and there's no conversation about how those two can be synced. So I got to pay off all my debt to follow the baby steps, but yet it's okay to have. So that there's going to be that what I call covenant conflict, where I'm trying to balance both. All I'm saying is, I think you have to come to this conversation with an awareness that that you may not be able to, because of your economic level, to pay off all your debt for some years. That you got a 15-year ride in front of you, and that's going to be what it's going to be.
So
Can you?
what do you think about his I think one of the operatives that he uses in the baby step is the debt snowball, where you take the, I'm gonna work on paying this one off, and the money that I was paying on that particular bill, I add it to another one until they're sort of
It's perfect. I like it, but I think the point is it's going to be rolling down the hill a while.
okay.
This is a 5-year roll. This is not going to be a 2-year roll. This is not going away, boy. And some of you that are watching, I mean, you got this credit cards. That's why I'm gonna tell you a trap now. Now this credit card, woo, that's the devil in your pocket. If you cannot pay those things off, and I don't believe in 30 days anymore. I mean, I have credit and I have I zeroed them all out. I have nothing on my credit cards. And I'm telling you, those things are wicked because they're designed to trap you. They're like bear traps. You get, because here's how you know it. You don't have but $1,000 cash in your pocket in the world. That's all you can put your hands on right now. Why would you go and charge to buy your kids clothes, $2,000 worth of clothes, and pay 25-30% interest and get it on sale and get 5% off but pay 25% interest on over a 2-year period? You don't pay 3 times what it's worth. It's just a trap. You can never get out of it. And so I agree with him that you want to pay that off. You want to get rid of that and you want to stop living on credit cards. I'm telling you, that is the one thing that I've learned in my life. Credit cards and second mortgages. Be careful. Second mortgages used to be a wonderful thing back in the day because it was 1%, 2% interest, and you could use the money and do all kind of fancy stuff and write it off. Those days are gone. And so back to the baby steps. Paying off debt, important principle, but understand for some of you it's going to be a while. You got a long road snowball. Thirdly, put 3 to 6 months of expenses into savings. I think that's a great goal, but for a lot of people, that's another snowball. That's another snowball because trying to live cash and save is just a difficult challenge. So here's my point. I think you should work toward these goals, but don't work toward them with guilt. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. Step 4, invest 15% of your household income. Now that's really bold. I mean, okay, if you pay off all your debt, you might can do that, right? But understand, if you can't pay off your mortgage and you can't, and you're doing the snowball, how you going to, but his point is down the road, you say 15%. Mm-hmm. I get it. That's a good goal. I mean, I get that. I live in that land. I understand. That's a good thing to be able to do. And then start college funding for your kids. I'm glad my kids are all out of college and that's over with. Hallelujah. So that's some of what we're going to talk about. And we're going to go through the book in some more detail and describe. There's some great principles in here that I just love and think are going to be very helpful.
And Pastor Ray, one of the things that Liz Albright said, would you suggest reading some of the other books that Dave Ramsey talks about? For example, the Total Money Makeover, to have a better understanding of some of the things he's talking about. And I wanted to go ahead and interject that because he does reference some of the areas that he doesn't elaborate on. He'll say, hey, I wrote that in this book or that book or whatever. So I think that's a great point that Liz does raise.
Liz, I agree with my great friend. I agree. That's a great, matter of fact, that was one of the first books I read by him, Total Money Makeover. That was a book I bought when I was in the airport that day. I think it's a great book. But at some point, you like me, you done bought 50 books. At some point, the issue is I get with the basics and I stick with it. And that brings me to this last thing I want to talk about is, there is, you're never going to change your financial situation until you change your rituals and routines, until you change the basic way you live. I think a lot of people are asking God for prosperity and blessing and asking God to prosper them, but they are not in a position they want to be in because their routines say, well, you're never going to get here. And until you say, okay, I'm going to give this percentage of my time to exercise, this percentage of my time to rest, this percentage of my time to my relationships and myself and so on. I think until you break life down into percentages, you're going to always struggle. You can read all the books, and at the end of the day, you'll never get to his goals, $1,000. You never get to the snowball because you're not, you're not aligning your life in the percentages you need. So that's why one of the things I look forward to sharing down the road in this year is the power of percentages. And let me mention 4 of them, 4 examples, and you can just kind of read. We'll come back to these, as I said, down the road in our study. Tithing is mentioned in the Bible as a percentage. In Genesis 14:20, it's mentioned by Abraham, who was the first tither. After a battle victory, he gave a tenth of his spoil or victory to the Lord. There's something about understanding. Leviticus chapter 27, verse 30 talks about tithing. And tithing, you'll find this fascinating, Ms. Bishop, was never designed to fund the mortgage. Mm-hmm. It was designed to fund full-time ministry, and to help the poor. So it wasn't designed to have the pressure of 30% of it being given to pay for a building and facilities. That wasn't the design. They worked in tents and they served God in homes. It wasn't as church and building focused as it is today. It's very expensive to operate church the way we do it. It's very, very expensive. Millions of dollars a year. I mean, and I think what that does is it puts undue pressure on the tithe. But notice that God said, though, I want to show you how I operate. I operate in percentages. And he gave them, I want to show you a number. I don't want you to pick an offering that you're going to give me. I want to tell you where to start. I'm a firm believer in tithing. But I understand that because of the things we just talked about, they can't tithe. Let me say it again. They can't tithe. They don't have, if they needed 40%, 40% of Americans, if they had a $500 problem, they'd have to go and borrow it. They don't have it. And so when you're talking to people about money, I think sometimes, you're honest with me. I believe you got to tithe no matter what. I do too. I'm a big believer in it. But I also understand that if you don't have it, you got $1,000 and you got to pay your rent. It's $800. You got $200 left. You can't. Hey, what we gonna do? You got to eat. Got to get gas. Got to get to work. So what I do is I say start where you are, but be consistent. Say, okay, I can't give a tenth. I'm gonna give 2. I'm gonna give 2%. Then I'm gonna give 3. I believe God. I'm getting a 4. I believe that, but you have to set. I'm gonna save $50 a pay period. I'm gonna set aside 1%, 2% of my salary every time I get paid. That's what I'm gonna do. I have a weekly saving strategy. I save every week. And there's something about that discipline that's been really enriching for me. Joseph's advice to Pharaoh in Genesis chapter 41, he told him that Joseph commended, he said, look, I want you to save 20% of the harvest. So when the famine comes, we'll be fine. And that's what saved Egypt, saving 20%. And I think that's just life-changing. If you set aside percentages, the widow's offering, remember Mark chapter 12, verse 41, the whole highlight was she gave 100%. Again, percentages. She was taught. He showed the difference between what the woman gave compared to what the rich Pharisees had given. They gave a very small percentage. So look at your percentages and see how much are you all in? Are you totally committed? The parable of the talents, again, Matthew 25:14. A percentage. One guy got 1 talent, one guy got 2. It's all about percentages. So I think if you can start dividing your life up in that way and say we're gonna focus on giving a certain percentage, like I said, exercise, a certain percentage of my money and a certain percentage of my time to rest, it will change your life. And we'll talk about that down the road. So let's bring your questions in and let's have some conversation.
We do have some questions. And one of the other things that he does in here, he mentions those stories and puts some context to the widow's mite and all of those other things. You don't work, you shouldn't eat and all of that. So it's a great Bible study book as well, too. I like that. And then he does have that section in the Law of Great Gain where he also talks about various percentages in terms of how to, not to get too far ahead for people that haven't read that far yet, but just how to break down your money. And I thought it was a very bold statement that something we think about a budget sometime as a very basic thing. And he's saying that a budget is an essential thing, that even when you're a millionaire, a budget is a very good thing. Otherwise, you're going to mess up on your money. And I think this idea of we finally get enough money that we reach this perfect destination that we don't have to really do anything other than just put everything on auto is sort of a misnomer. So,
well, I learned that one. It's true. It comes in seasons. You know, you can do really well and then have a change of season. So well said. That's going to be a great conversation over the next 3 months. So get the book and you'll join in that. So let's go to the questions. What do you got for me?
Got a couple things here. Our friend Miss Jewel would like for you to cover how to take risk in, she calls it sitting money that's sort of just sitting, waiting to be invested, and what to invest it in. So would like to hear more about investments. I hope I covered that well, Jewel.
I got it. That's your question on screen. First of all, I'm glad you got some sitting money, Jewel.
She's taken all the baby steps. She's done she said Larry Burkett and financial literacy and Dave Ramsey. So she's doing good.
I want to say one thing about this whole, because that jars my mind a bit. There is a power in risk. And debt is part of the risk, because if you're going to build roads, cities, malls, housing projects, there is risk involved. There is debt involved. That's not always done cash. So I think that risk has to be wisely approached, but you can't guarantee it. I don't know that you're going to ever be successful if you're afraid of loss. I think you should try to avoid it. I do desperately, but I realize that there are times I lean in. Right now, I've done it. You know, I lean into our budget. I lean into our efforts, because I believe that you're not going to get anywhere if you don't try to go harder. The Bible says, "Seek, knock, and ask." So, Julie, I would say Matthew 7 is your verse. You know, you got to seek, knock, and ask. You got to make sure that you're advancing, but you want to make sure. I love Warren Buffett's advice. You know, don't do things you don't understand. You know, stay in your lane. I just had an opportunity presented to me, multi-million-dollar opportunity. I decided, no, I'm not ready for that particular offer. I'll take another one, okay, but not that one, because I don't know much about that area, and so I need to make sure I stay in my lane. Taking risk with people you don't know, putting up money that you can't afford to lose, is not wise. So I really believe that risk is nice, but I also think satisfaction is nice too. Sometimes you got enough going on, you don't need to add unnecessary risk. So that's what I would say to that.
And a second question from Jewel is: do you believe money, that's losing value due to inflation, if it's sitting in an unfruitful account, is the word that she uses, like a CD that may be 2 to 3% as the rate is the rate, and if so, what's 3 ways you would invest that money sitting there?
Well, see, Joe, to me, the question is, what's this money for? So let's say, for example, you got $50,000 and it's sitting there and it's, quote, not doing anything, but it's security money. So in case something happens, storm, you know about those storms, right? Or in case some difficulty comes up in your life, that $50,000 is there as a cushion against those days. That $10,000 is cushion for those moments when you didn't get paid or whatever happened. So to me, it depends on what the money's sitting there for. As far as, I'd rather have $50,000 sitting in an account that's getting just a little bit of interest than risk it in something that's foolish and lose it. I think a good investment is a good investment. Making a move on something that you really believe, you're going to buy a house, you want to fix it up, flip it, do that because you feel good about it, you're confident, but you could lose money. I've lost money. I've lost money in stocks. I've lost money on things real estate deals. I mean, I didn't always make money, but the question is that money that I can afford to lose like that? Is that a smart decision in the long term? I also think there's a danger in doing nothing and being safe and not having a future. So you got cash, but no future. See, I think that's a risk. So as a pastor, I could sit back and we can not have anything. We can just have church and just be safe. But if we do that, we have no youth, no children, no future. So so it's all about a balancing act and finding a way to use money so that it advances what you do, but doesn't put you in a place where you don't want to be. But there's a risk. There's a risk on both sides of that.
And we also have a question from LaQuisha. She says she's in her early 40s and has an emergency fund. It says paid off debt except the mortgage and some student loans. What would you suggest to make savings grow? It is currently in a high yield account.
You need to get your money manager. I'll stay in my lane. Get you somebody that's a professional in that area that help you grow your money. I'm gonna tell you something about these investment ideas, though. I've keep some cash. Try to work on that. That's my goal for the church, goal for me, for all of us, because the idea you get to the point that it's more money, you make more interest, make more. And sometimes you just need to get a good old savings account and just leave it. You don't need to do anything fancy. You don't need to go and create. But if you want to do that, you need to go to someone who's a professional and do that. I'm a big believer in dollar cost averaging and long-term investments. I'm not for fast money on a buck. I'm not for writing a book and trying to sell a book, and that's my only goal. I believe in long-term, healthy, methodical, consistent investments and resetting the clock when things don't go right. And I've had to do that several times in my life. Reset. Didn't get right, tried, it didn't work out, reset. And the main thing is stay healthy so you have time to reset.
David Williams makes a comment that I think could benefit all of us. Them credit card people are smarter than we are. So
David, you're right. It's designed to be. It's incredible. I mean, I have never, and this is the truth, at every level of my income, and I do well, I'm telling you, you don't win. You don't win because it's designed to trap you. You're spending, and let me tell you what a credit card person's thinking. You are showing a sign of weakness because you can't pay cash. See, you're showing it's a demonstration of weakness. So, for example, you call in and you say, "I want to increase my credit limit," right? And you want to increase your credit limit, and you're carrying a balance of $5,000 on your credit card that you haven't paid off, and you're making the minimum payment. Now you want to increase your card, and they're really slow about this now. They're not as fast as they used to be. You want to increase your card limit to $10,000, and they want to go, why? You're already struggling with $5,000. Don't you see that? Don't you see that you don't have $5,000 cash anywhere? And now you want to spend 10, 15, 20? You got 5 other cards you've already applied for? This is a sign of financial stewardship problems. And I think that if you want to be successful, you got to deal with this. And let me just say this. This is why churches struggle, because their people struggle. Because they can't tithe, they can't give, because they don't have any money. They have no cash. And I think you have to get people to the place where they stop, sit down, count the costs up, and say, let's fix this.
Okay, Sandra has a great question for you, Sandra Hodges. She said she started listening to the book today and had to push past his intro of being a millionaire at 26, then went bankrupt and recovered from it. Said, that's not my story at all. How do I not become discouraged?
Hey, Sandra, hey, girl, listen, I feel you. I feel you. I said the same thing. I've heard him tell his story, and bless Dave, any harm when I say this. You know how he lost his money, right? I don't know if you know.
They called on him. Huh? I thought about you when you said that the bank did a call on him.
You thought about me. People gonna know what you mean by that. That ain't what you mean.
You talked a lot in your sermons how the banks like getting from under the pressure of the bank because they can call a loan. Now, I'm not saying you've had that done. You just saying.
Let's get that clear. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Pastor Rick. That would not have been.
Let me say this. And some of you don't understand this. So let's say, just for the sake of when you're in business, David was in business, and when you get a business loan, you have a 5-year review. Normally it's 5 years. So when you buy your house as an individual, you have a 30-year mortgage. You don't have any reviews. That's not even built in. But imagine if every 5 years you had to go back and refinance your house. You had to qualify again to get the same loan in 5 years, every 5 years. Well, your income and your life can go up and down, right? So if you don't have the qualifications to in 5 years, they could call your loan. They can say, well, we want to cancel your loan and take back your building or your home or whatever. It's pretty powerful. So Dave, when he was in early business, he did real estate deals, and he missed the market and ended up with too much. He was too leveraged. He had houses and stuff, and they would not give him a line of credit. That's the only reason he went bankrupt. He went bankrupt because somebody wasn't nice. That's basically it. In my opinion. I mean, I know he tells the story the way he tells it, but if somebody had given him, or if he had a connection with somebody and they could have just give him a little grace, he would have never lost all that money.
Well, Pastor, one of the things that you did say in your intro is if someone's going to tell you how to do something, you want to listen to people that have done it. So I think, not trying to defend it one way. I mean, Dave has a lot of money. He can defend himself. But I took it as, man, this is someone that knows how to make money. He's had some success. Yeah. He's recovered from it. Really? And he talks about a lot of his perspectives that were wrong and how he has grown over time in his faith in terms of being a manager of the money that God has entrusted to him.
I agree with all of that. The only thing I'm saying is what Sandra just said, and I said it in my head. When you read it and you think, well, I haven't even got to that level yet. Well, I ain't lost no millions. I ain't never had a million. People are in that place. And I understand Sandra, but here's what I say, be inspired by his story, mm-hmm. and embrace the journey he went through. You may not have had millions like he had, but you have your own testimony. You lost thousands, or you have your own journey, So just see it that way. He's just telling his story. But I did say, sometimes I tell a story. It's kind of like, I had a guy tell me one time, he said, man, my life is so hard. Things are going so bad. I only got 3 minutes or two, by the way. He said, I only made $300,000 this year. That's what he told me. And this was 30 years ago.
Oh, that's nice.
That's what he told me. And he said, I am just depressed. And I thought, I ain't never made that kind of money in my life. And I was so, so my point, I get Sandra's point, sometimes you get lost in the success of the person you're trying to learn from. But let's just embrace it and move on.
A couple of quick ones for the last minutes here. Tithing off the gross or the net, which one?
I always say, which one you want to be blessed on?
Okay.
I believe in tithing. My wife makes a great point. She says, if everything else you pay is a bill, if you tithe on the net, you might as well put your light bill, your phone bill, and all that in there too, because taxes are just a bill, and you really see that when you're self-employed, like we are considered.
Okay.
So, but just tithe, just honor God where you can. And to me, it's a $50, $60 difference sometimes. It's not much of a difference sometimes. So go for it.
Okay. Let me see. Would love to have some information on dollar cost averaging. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Averaging is basically investing in small pieces. $50, $50 a month, and then buying stocks and mutual funds in small amounts over time. Normally, when you buy in a 401k or something like that, that's how it's done. You just buy it, you do it over time. I want to tell you, if you start getting into these issues, you can just, you need to. There's a lot of stuff online you can use, tools. Google what is dollar cost averaging, and look at some of the videos out there. And but if you're going to do it in a big way, you need to get you a financial advisor, somebody that can help you. And I'm going to give you a little clue about a financial advisor. Don't just get somebody that's going to tell you to try to sell you something. I've had those kind. get somebody that's going to really give you good advice. You want somebody that's going to give you good kind of counsel and that's qualified and who's not just trying to sell a product.
And this one may have to go on the list as well, Pastor Rick, but do you have a book recommendation or tips for someone who may be interested in entrepreneurship?
I'll tell you later. I
Because I
don't.
know you have a guest coming with that.
Yeah, I don't. But I can't think of one off the cuff. But the book we're reading is a good start. I'll tell you that.
What Jacqueline Nelson Butler, what is the name of the book that you're reviewing from? Can it post that again? That'll be great.
The Legacy Journey.
Yeah.
This book, it's really great. All right.
And one last thing, and I know that we know her very well, Christy Bonner,
Hey,
regarding the high yield savings. Well, hey, Christy, high yield savings accounts are good options for holding an emergency fund. They don't tie up your money like CDs and are more easily accessible when needed. Most are currently averaging 4 to 5% APY. They are also FDIC insured in most cases, but do your diligence to check it out for yourself. Bankrate.com lists various rates.
I hear you, Christy. Great advice from a smart lady who does well.
Yeah, and we know Christy. That's why I was free to kind of read that.
Oh yeah, she's smart. They make some real smart moves in their family, and they're in a good spot. And I like it. My wife celebrates your success, and I think it's a great advice. All right. Anything else?
I think that's all.
Thank you, everybody. Sheila, you have any final words before we hang up today?
Hey, I say get past Dave Ramsey's story and read the rest of it. I think it's a good, solid, balanced approach that he does take with it. And I like what Pastor Rick said. Some things you may not be able to do right now, but you still have a goal to work toward. And we can all, I think, learn from these things and put them in balance and not be discouraged while we are working on baby step 1. And eventually we'll get to baby step 5. We'll get there. And I think we'll end with Pastor Rick. Success comes in pieces, not in chunks.
Well said. Now, Saturday, we're going to be back again at 10 o'clock. I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship in the Bible. I'm going to give you some examples of what we can learn from different entrepreneurs. There's several that were really great examples for us of what it means. An entrepreneur is someone who takes nothing and creates something out of it. They have a tremendous ability to create wealth. And I just think that one of the things that can change your life is learning how to respect that process. So entrepreneurs in the Bible will have a Bible study. It will be from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock on this coming Saturday. You can come in person or you can come online. Also remember, we have a Bible of books and brunch. After that, you can come to eat if you like. We'd love to have you come. Don't come just for the food though. If you've not read the book, it's called If Only. It's another wonderful book, Finding Freedom from Regret. Living in the woulda, coulda, shouldas is not how we should live. My time's up. You've given me a gracious 2 minutes over. Thank you for your time. I'll see you guys on Saturday, and be blessed. Thank you for watching we call this our prosperity team. I pray that if you are not a giver and you've never honored God in your giving, start now. Start giving something. Be consistent and watch it turn into something amazing. I really believe that it will. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you for the opportunity to be with your people today. I pray your blessing upon this time. I pray you bless them all the way from Orangeburg, South Carolina, all the way down to Florida, wherever they're watching today, up in New York, up in Alabama, California, all over the country. We ask your blessing and grace. We thank you for this time in Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all be blessed. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.